Right now, it is 93 degrees out here in Maryland. I am actually on the banks of the Big Elk Creek, which is just over my right shoulder. Today we are going to explore this area looking for a few historic sites that are scattered through this little stretch of this valley. There should be a few homes, old abandoned homes. There should be an old cotton mill and some traces of bridge crossings. So we're going to go through, we're going to try to locate these, and to some degree we're going to document them. So let's get started. Alright, looks like we found our first target. And it's the stonework right in front of us. You can see it just above the foliage. So we're going to try to make our way through this brush and get a better look at things. Well, we are now at the approximate first floor level of this first house we found. And one thing that instantly drew my attention was an old, very decayed remnant of a hewn timber. There are a couple of hewn marks in it. They're not very clear. And of course, they were hewn timbers even into the end of the 19th century. So you can't really base the age on the use of hewn timbers. I've seen barns built in the 1890s that were still using hewn timbers. Someday I'll explain why you would still do stuff by hand when there are sawmills only a few miles down the road. What I was actually hoping was to find a nail or some screw or something in this piece of lumber, because if I had a nail from 1790 until approximately 1890, you can judge the age of a house based almost entirely on the nail, and it will give you an accuracy of 10 to 15 years. The reason behind that is manufacturing technology with nails evolves so quickly that every 15 years a new type of nail would come in and almost immediately become dominant in the market. So they were cut differently, they were heated differently, the materials were cut at different angles, things of that nature. And I was kind of hoping to find a nail. Unfortunately, this place was burned up in the 1950s or 60s. All the nails are 3 or 4 feet below my feet right now. And I'm not digging out here on this site, especially on a 93-degree day. So I'm going to show you a few other things here, and then we're going to move on. Alright, so here we are. We're looking at one of the window openings is approximately 4 foot high. You can see where the old wooden lintel went across. It, of course, is long gone. And some of the stone that were supported by that lintel have collapsed, but it created a natural stone arch, and this is a very common feature. And this gives us a unique opportunity to look at the inside structure of a freestanding stone wall. And you can see how the stone, it's placed well, but it's not very precise. And I mean, this is very typical of a 19th century working class home. So it's rubble filled in the center, and I mean, it was built to last. And you can actually see the old 19th century mortar. You can see the flecks of white lime in there. There are a couple of ways this could happen, and that will be the subject of a future video. And also, I am actually going to take a small sample of this mortar, and maybe in the next couple of videos, we will show you how you can recycle old mortar like this and actually use it in the same wall from which you got it. It's a very environmentally friendly product, and it's a practice that should be further developed and used, especially where accuracy counts in preserving and restoring historic work. So there's not much left of this place. Most of the stone obviously is on the ground. Some of the foundation is still intact, and you have a large pile of stone in the center. But all in all, there isn't much here. So we already found the second structure, the one in the middle, and it's only about 25 yards away from the first one we came to. So let's go down and check it out. It looks like this one has very little left of it. There's the foundation stonework, but nothing really above the ground level. Much of the stone has been pushed out by trees growing against it, behind it, in front of it, and the walls are totally gone. And according to some of my sources, this place was long abandoned by the 1950s. So there's very little left, and there's very little rubbish around it, and there's not much in the way of loose stone either. So all I can tell is this was most likely built at the same time as the first one we visited, and it was almost definitely built for factory workers downstream. So we're going to go ahead, leave off, and move on to something else. The foliage was too thick to find the third house, so we'll come back later and look. But now we're going to try to find the remains of the cotton mill, which should be right across the creek over in here someplace. So it shouldn't be too tough to find due to the topography, and the maps are fairly accurate. And the modern bridge is right there. And down in this bottom, I think I can see kind of the remains of the old tail race that came off of the mill. So we're going to get across there and see what we can find. Well, a little bit deeper than my shins, but let's go. Whew. It might get my cigarettes wet if I'm not careful. Pull them on up. Of course, there's a shallower point, like 3 feet further down. That's okay. It's 90-some degrees outside, so I'm not going to complain. I suspect that might be the old mill race, like I thought. Let's go check it out. And here's the first evidence of the cotton factory. We found a short section of the mill race still lined in stone, which is surprising. I mean, this area floods quite a bit. So even finding this short 12-foot stretch of stonework that once lined the mill race it's very nice, and I'm satisfied. Now, of the actual cotton factory behind me, there doesn't appear to be much evidence at all, at least above the surface. There is this rectangular depression, and that's usually a way you can locate old ruins. But there are several banks. There is this bank here. There's a second over there, and of course I'm standing on another one. And I believe these probably mark out the approximate dimensions of this building. And then there are 2 metal rods right here. I can't tell right now if they are steel or route, but I'm wondering what, if any, purpose they served here at this cotton mill site. So let's move on. There's nothing much here to see, so we're going to go try to find something else of interest. And here we are at the abutment for the old steel bridge that was constructed, I believe, right around 1900. In the 1890s, I believe I read several newspaper accounts where there were heavy rains that flooded out many of the older timber bridges along the Big and Little Elk Creeks and the Northeast. So I have a feeling this is a replacement bridge. And also the location of this abutment just doesn't match up with the 1877 map at all. So this is a later construction, which, while disappointing in some respects, it is, I believe, an example of my great-great-grandfather's stonework. He lived approximately 200 yards from this location, and he was a very well-known stonemason in the local area. And the work, it's very similar to known work that I've seen that he's done. So, based on some of the historical documents, I'm pretty sure this is post-1880. But another clue is the use of Portland cement. You see it on the outside, which isn't common even for pre-1880 work, but deep inside these cracks, there's Portland cement all through it. So it was used from the beginning of the construction. So this is where we're going to leave off, and I really want someday to find traces of the 1877 bridge, and that may not be possible because it was probably a timber bridge, and if there were any stone abutments, they probably didn't amount to much. So this is going to be it for today. I'll probably go swimming and try to stay cool and plan out our next adventure, which should be at an old plantation down in Lower Delaware. We'll be visiting there next weekend, and hopefully that'll be a very interesting visit. Thank you for watching.